Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the third video of our 4-part series on how to create your very own custom-made avatar for VRchat. Um, if you guys haven't seen the last two videos, we pretty much covered on our first video the basics of Maya, how to use it, how to understand the program just using some of the basic functions that you might need. And then on the second video, we went on to starting to build our character and give it some flesh and shape it out. And we also gave it a rig. And today we are going over the subject of how to use that rig, or how to glue the rig to the flesh that we made, which is called the skinning process, and how to get our character ready to be able to move. And then we can get it into Unity for our last video on how to get it into the game. So without any further ado, I suppose let's go into the scene here. And we're just starting off from where we left off here. We have our character. As you can see, he's got his legs and his feet and all his body parts in place. If we have a look underneath his skin there, you can see he's got a rig with his bones, and all our joints are in the right spot here. So we're all ready to go. Everything's perfect for VRchat. It likes the skeleton system. I've tested this out previously, and so we shouldn't have too much issues. Today's subject is a little bit more complex if it's your first time ever doing it. It's called the skinning process, and it pretty much just means we're sticking the skin to the bones, and then we'll be able to use it functionally inside the game. So what we can do here is just to get started, a good thing to do always is just remember to save your file first in this file save scene. But then secondly, just before you go ahead and attach the skin to the bones, you want to get rid of the history of the geometry that you've been playing around with. The reason why you do this is you sometimes get into issues later on down the pipeline. If you still have bad history or something's kind of corrupted your file, it can cause issues later. So it's good to just clean up the history now before we go ahead. So the way to do that is in your outliner here. You want to go ahead and select all of your geometry, and you'll see these small icons here, the ones with the paper with the arrow going across it. This is actually the history of one of the objects. So say I deleted this one, you can see the hand on the left hand side has been deleted, and that's the history of us grouping it into one object. So the way to do this is you select all of your objects, just select the first one and then shift click the last one. You go into the edit menu up here, you go delete by type, and you go delete history. It's kind of like clearing the cache if you're familiar with that. And now we can just go through here, no worries, we can just delete up the history on the remaining ones there, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with it now. So we have a clean model, we have good history now. We haven't named our objects, but I think for this tutorial we don't need to. And all we need to do now to skin the object is we need to open up this first character one reference, and just so we can see this hip joint, and that's all we really need for now. And what we'll do here is we'll select all of our geometry, and then we're gonna once again shift click that one there, the character's hips. We're gonna go onto this down arrow menu. We have the modeling one, which you might be on now, but we're gonna go to the rigging one here, go right to the very top, and where it says skin, you click on skin, and then we're going to go to the bind skin options, the box next to bind skin. So hopefully you guys find that nice and easy. I'll reset my my settings, and you'll see nothing's changed. I'm using the default settings for this rig, and it seems to work out fine. So let me explain what this does here. The bind skin option is as it says, it will bind the skin, but it needs to know where to bind the skin to. So the last thing we selected was our hip joint. On the top option here, on the bind skin options, it says bind to what? What are we binding it to? And the joint that we selected, we're joining it to the hierarchy of that joint. So the hip joint is the first joint in our rig. So it's the first joint that everything attaches to. It's the center point of our character, the hip. Say you have another bone before that one, you would want to click the first bone of that joint hierarchy. Okay, so it's fine the way we're doing it now. You can just actually reset the settings, and you have these settings that I have here on my screen. You have joint hierarchy. All you have to do now is apply, and it does its magic, and you'll see if we unclick the character, we have a colorized rig now. And that means it's tried its best to do whatever it can to rig the joint, or to skin the joint to the flesh. So as you saw there, I tried to click on the bone, but it only clicked on the geometry. And if you guys remember, we unselected the joint selection object thing up here, this tool. So you just want to reselect that, and now you should be able to select the joint. So this is the fun part. This is where you get to see if the character is working for the means of today. So we can use the select the joint, go to the rotational tool, and we'll move it, and voila. Would you look at that? We have our character's leg is able to move, and it's moving according to our bone system, or our bone structure. So I just undo that a couple times. I'm just going to go through our rig and just make sure everything's working as kind of expected. So like so, yeah, that's good. Leg's working fine. We'll go to the elbow. Let's try this, the elbow. Cool. We can see we have a little bit of deformation on here. That's no problem. That's due to the skinning process that we used, and I'll explain that further in this one right here, this step. So you might see this, and it's quite common in most characters that you'll skin or do the skinning process. If you select this shoulder joint here, watch what happens when I rotate this. Keep an eye on the head. Can you see the head moving there? If I unselect that and I turn off the transparency, you can see the head's kind of warped with the shoulder, and that's not really how we want to do it. That's not the right way we want our character to look. Especially if we're walking in the game and his arms moving all the time. We don't want his head to be shifting around like this. You might see it on some people's characters where they have kind of strange spikes or strands on their geometry on their character. The reason is that they haven't skinned the character properly, or maybe something's too close to another. One bone is too close to a certain amount of flesh. So there's a way to fix this. This is actually called the skinning process of the pipeline. What we want to do here to fix this is we need to select the geometry, and I'll show you guys really quickly here. If we go, we had the poly modeling. We're going to go back to that rigging tab where we had the human IK option, and just the one to the right of that says paint skin weights. If we double click on that, we're going to open up this option. You can dock it on the side here if you wish. Just trying to get into the right spot here. I think this will be fine for now, but you can see our model, the head is showing us this this tool settings here is showing us everything that's affecting our head. So if we moved our left shoulder like we just did here, it's affecting it. So if we clicked on the left shoulder, it's affecting this portion of the head. If we select the left arm, it's selecting even the left arm right down here is selecting a little bit. If we choose the neck should be affecting it a little bit. But really all we want is the head joint here, the one in the middle of the head, to affect it. We want this to be the main thing that's going to be attributing to the movement of this head. So if you move the head in the game, then that should only be the thing that's moving it. It shouldn't be if you move the head, your foot should be moving, and nothing like that. So to fix this, the tool here that we have selected, the paint skin weights tool, we need to go and find the correct joint we want for our geometry. Say our left head we want to control, our head joint we want to control our head. All we have to do is left click and we paint it. The wider it is, it means the more how do you say that? The wider the paint is, or the wider the color on the object is, the more power that joint has over that piece of the geometry. So you can see here I've painted it white, and if I move the shoulder again, there's no movement coming from the head. The same thing should go if I move the shoulder. Nothing else should really be affecting that head joint. The neck, obviously, because the neck joint is connected to the head joint, then we are seeing movement in that because the head joint is actually moving. This joint here is the one that's controlling most of the movement. So hopefully it is a little confusing. You might need to watch it once or twice just to get the hang of this. I'm just gonna center out my rotations again on my neck joint here. Change that one back, and I'll do the same here with the shoulder. And now our rig is pretty much good. It's pretty skinned. You'll see with the fingers, it's gonna pull the geometry quite funny, but in the game we don't actually use the fingers too often. So for this tutorial, we won't really use it. It moves fine if you move all the joints. The same thing goes for the thumb. The thumb is a bit strange here, but it's just getting affected. You can go through those pieces of geometry and fix those up if you wish. But for now, all I want you to do is go to this head joint, or the head geometry. Find this skin weights tool, paint skin weights. Double click on that option. Find the head joint. Here we go. You see we got spine 1, left shoulder, left arm, neck, and we have the head joint. And I want you to just paint the head to 100% white. So everything should be white on the head there. And for the rest of it, I think I'm pretty happy, even with a little bit of deformation on the legs. I think that's fine. Just for what the purposes of this video, you can kind of just get the very basics of skin weights, and I'll dive more into this later on in another video for you guys. And believe it or not, that's the skinning process done for your character. If you've got the same sort of build as mine, it's going to be exactly the same as what I've done here. All you have to do is select the head, paint the skin weights full on white, and then we're pretty much done here. So go ahead, save your file, save your scene. I'm going to save mine as skinning, and export. There you go. So now we're safe. We don't need to worry anymore. Our character is skinned and he's in his own file. And now our last stage here is to get it across to Unity. So what we need to do is export this file into a FBX file. So if you go up to this file menu up here, and we're going to go down a little bit here, and we're going to go to the export all option. Go to export all, and we're going to select the file format as FBX. There you go. We're just going to change the name of the character. We can call him, we'll just call him Retina for now. You can call him whatever you want. And just go ahead, and you don't need to change any of these. Everything should be fine, and just go export all. And there you go. Mine's in my safe spot. He's ready to go, and that should cover the skinning process of our tutorial. So I'll upload another video shortly about how to get him ready for the game of VRchat. I'll see you guys soon.